Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. On the day that more people died in the U.S. from COVID-19 than any other day since the outbreak began, more than 500 in the last 24 hours, Governor Bullock is tightening restrictions on people coming into the state. The governor issued a new order that travelers arriving to Montana from another state or country must undergo a 14-day self-quarantine. Now, Governor Bullock says the directive applies both to Montana residents and non-residents entering the state for non-work-related purposes. Healthcare workers are excluded from the directive. In addition, the directive authorizes the Montana National Guard to conduct temperature checks at Montana airports and rail stations and screen for potential exposure history. Now, this is some video here of the naval hospital ship Comfort arriving in New York City today to relieve the pressure on hospitals overwhelmed by the coronavirus crisis. It has 1,000 beds and it'll be used to treat non-coronavirus patients. Workers are also building an emergency hospital right now in Central Park near Mount Sinai Health System. New York remains the hardest hit area in the country with more than 66,000 cases. There have now been 164,274 cases across the country, resulting in 3,040 deaths. And the death toll here in Montana is now up to 5 victims. The latest 2 deaths out of Toole County along the High Line. The latest confirmed cases this afternoon in Montana, now 177 cases. That's a jump of 16 from overnight. More than 4,400 people have now been tested, but health officials expect that number of positive tests to grow significantly. Gallatin County added at least 7 new cases, growing the total there to 69, the most in the state by far. Yellowstone County added 2 more cases this afternoon for a total of 28 now. Well, earlier today, Toole County Health Department leaders confirmed those 2 deaths there related to the coronavirus.
It knows no limitations, no age, no gender, no race. That is why it's good morning.
Governor Bullock called today's news a heartbreaking reminder to us all that we must continue to do everything we can to slow the spread of the disease. And we are learning more about one of the Toole County victims tonight. A family member tells MTN News that 79-year-old Bev Rogers passed away at a facility in Cutbank on Saturday. The relative says Rogers contracted the virus last week and had health issues in past years. Relatives went on to say how much Bev loved her family and that she had a sense of humor right up until the end. The Rogers family also wanted to share a message with the public. It says, "Don't let this virus become so real to your families before you take it seriously. Follow social distancing." We weren't and still aren't able to get together at a time when that's the only thing we want to do. Very sad. Well, the White House says the U.S. has reached a milestone with more than 1 million Americans tested and nearly 100,000 samples tested every day for the coronavirus. President Trump struck an optimistic tone on the ramp up in ventilator and medical equipment production by the U.S. companies, but some states say they've yet to feel any benefits. Skylar Henry reports from the White House.
Thank you very much.
President Trump says social distancing guidelines and travel restrictions are expected to stay in place as he and his task force continue to review them.
The guidelines will be very much as they are, maybe even toughened up a little bit. They're having a tremendous impact, and we're starting to see it.
Several CEOs were on hand as the president praised the uptick in private sector production of more ventilators and personal protection equipment. Ford Motor Company says it'll make 50,000 ventilators in 100 days in partnership with General Electric. General Motors is also beefing up production.
In reserve, we have almost 10,000 ventilators. We have now 10 companies at least making the ventilators.
But according to audio obtained by CBS News of a White House conference call Monday, several rural state governors warned they're having a hard time securing medical supplies and tests, with much of the federal focus on the hardest hit urban areas. President Trump proclaimed March 30th National Doctors Day, praising the doctors and medical professionals on the front lines of battling the coronavirus.
I want to send a message of gratitude to the foot soldiers in this war.
The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services announced it'll give waivers to allow healthcare centers to to provide non-intensive care outside of the hospital in places such as hotels or gymnasiums, and that it will relax policies to allow hospitals to grow its workforce. Top health officials say vaccine trials are ramping up with promising candidates, but that vaccine is still a year to a year and a half away.
Thank you.
Skyler Henry, CBS News, the White House.
Well, Governor Bullock was one of the governors in on that call with President Trump today. In that audio recording obtained by the New York Times, Bullock said officials here have been attempting to do contact tracing, but are struggling because we don't have adequate tests. Bullock is also quoted as saying, literally, we are 1 day away. If we don't get test kits from the CDC, we won't be able to do testing in Montana. Well, in the massive relief package approved by Congress over the weekend, Montana state and local governments will get $1.25 billion to spend. It's not entirely clear yet on how or what that money can be spent on. Montana legislative leaders will hold a conference call tomorrow to discuss that and other issues stemming from the coronavirus fallout. Democratic leaders say it appears Governor Bullock and local governments have the authority to spend the money without state legislative approval. Democratic House Minority Leader Casey Schreiner of Great Falls also says the legislature should not needlessly slow down the process of getting that money where it's needed. Majority Republican leaders had some words of caution, however. House Speaker Greg Hertz of Polson says he believes the cash must be used for COVID-19 related expenses only and not just to replace lost revenue. Senate President Scott Sales of Bozeman says he wants the Democratic governor and others to act within their proper authority.
That's something that we need to get to the bottom of, is how much latitude the governor has in order to utilize these funds, and also how much latitude we want to give the governor if we even have the ability to do that without going into a special session. You know, that's a lot of money, and I think the legislature needs to be involved in the decision making on where it's spent and how.
Well, the election deciding the fate of Billings School District's $1.6 million elementary school levy may be pushed back 2 months to July 7th. That information learned late last week. Q2's Mitch Legge joins us now from home with details. Mitch?
In an effort to protect the health and safety of county election staff and volunteers, Yellowstone County election officials announced a proposition to postpone the upcoming May 5th school election and reschedule for July 7th.
The statute, it's meant exactly for this. If the governor declares a state of an emergency, that's what triggers this whole process, and we're in it right now.
Rutherford said he's not seen the statute used in his time as the county elections administrator. The recommendation was made to provide social distancing during the short turnaround in which school election ballots will need to be certified, then stuffed into envelopes to deliver to voters.
It's many people touching envelopes and ballots all at the same time. So there's a space limit, there's a security issue, and quite frankly, a lot of our volunteers are the people that shouldn't be out and about right now.
The final announcement on whether Election Day will be changed will be released on Friday. For school elections, the power to reschedule rests only in the hands of the Yellowstone County Schools Superintendent Sherry Long. Rutherford said he's been in talks with her about the possible postponement since last week.
The close of basically candidate certification to when you have to get ballots out is so narrow that it's a scramble to put absentee packets together in normal circumstances. And now when you add in COVID outbreak and required social spacing at the workplace, it just leaves us in an untenable situation.
In this election, Billings voters will decide the fate of a $1.6 million levy for the elementary schools. The elementary school budget is expected to be short about $3.4 million in the 2020-21 school years. In Billings, Mitch Legge, MTN News.
All right, thanks, Mitch. The Billings School Board heard information about the possible election date change tonight. At the board meeting, Superintendent Greg Upham said the administration has made no determination on whether it will cancel high school graduation. All right, meteorologist Ed McIntosh joining us now for a first look at the forecast. Nice start to the week, Ed, but some changes on the way, huh?
That's right. The temperatures go down and the chance of snow goes up. Let's start with temperatures and the chance of a few showers as readings will drop tomorrow. We'll still see some 50s across the eastern plains, but that's where we're seeing mid-60s today. Billings may be close to 50 by later in the day, but also we start to pick up that chance of showers. The next round of colder air starts to move in, and then we really take a tumble as a lot of the readings will struggle to make it out of the 20s by the end of the day on Wednesday. Meanwhile, snowfall starts to move in fact, in through western Montana tonight, heading into tomorrow. And the latest computer analysis, maybe 2 to 4 inches around Billings, but that is by no means locked in. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes.
All right, thank you, Ed. Senator Jon Tester is making it known to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that rural hospitals in Montana are in need of promised medical safety equipment and financial security during the COVID-19 pandemic. Tester wrote in a letter to the Secretary of Human Service Department stating, "Our rural providers need your immediate assistance. Congress has provided you with the funding and flexibility. Now it's up to the administration to respond with rapid action to sustain rural providers." Senator Tester has led the charge to ensure that Montana's rural health care providers are not left behind in the face of the outbreak. City of Billings announcing some changes in its service and hours of operation, effective immediately. City Hall operates Tuesday and Wednesday from 7 a.m. until noon. Vulnerable populations are asked to come in from 7 a.m. until 9 a.m. The police department front window services will be offered Tuesday and Wednesday from 7 a.m. until noon. All fire stations and the City County 911 Center remain closed to the public. Municipal courts will continue to operate as scheduled, but there are safety rules in place. And Costco shoppers, some changes for you as well. The store announced some new hours starting today. During the week, the store will close at 6:30 in the evening, 2 hours earlier than usual. The gas station will close at 7. On the weekends, the hours will stay the same as always from 9:30 in the morning until 6 p.m. Well, a Wyoming man arrested in Bighorn County, Montana late last night, accused of killing 3 people. According to the Sheridan County Sheriff's Office in Wyoming, the man contacted his family telling them he had killed someone. When police arrived at his home in Bighorn, Wyoming, they found 3 people dead. Still to come on tonight's 10 o'clock news, the Billings-based Campgrounds of America front and center in the national fight against COVID-19. We'll explain. Plus, we're going to introduce you to one local restaurant that not only remains open, but has found a way to give back. And in sports, from virtual meetings to in-home gyms, the Cats are staying game ready during their time away from the football field.
You're watching MTN News with Janelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.